Hello again and welcome to Last Time Studios' Top 10 Things You Might Not Know. And this week, it's not just another zombie film. It's the thought-provoking journey that's known as 28 Days Later. So let's get started with number 10. Don't Cause a Scene. The execution pit scene was filmed outside a church just off Witherington Road in Salisbury. One of the prop teams, for one reason or another, didn't bother to pick up the fake bodies after filming. A local hairdresser saw them from the road, panicked, crashed a car and phoned the police, who were called to investigate and even ended up interrogating some of the crew. Number 9. Nobody on the main road and the highways. I always wondered how on earth the filmmakers got the shots of the empty roads. Closing any road can be particularly problematic in the UK. One small road closure can lead to a whole host of big problems. For the scenes on the motorway, the production got permission to shoot on the M1 on a Sunday morning between 7 and 9 AM. Using 10 cameras, the filmmakers managed to capture a total of 1 minute of usable footage. That's some serious effort, believe me. Number 8. These zombies don't need brains. Both Alex Garland and Danny Boyle felt that one of the biggest fears in modern society is the fear of disease or viral apocalypse. They both also felt that portraying the infected as the bog-standard brain consumers was completely outdated. So the film was directed more towards real-life threats in the way that the infected would react, which was inspired by such incidents as anthrax and also the bioterrorism scares in London. And for the style of the film, it makes absolute sense. Number 7. In sequence. In case you didn't know, but you probably already do, a lot of movies are filmed completely out of order for a variety of really good reasons, but the film was almost entirely shot in sequence, and there was only a few pickup scenes which had to be reshot later on. If it works, it works. Number 6. Even Stephen King was a fan. Horror novelist Stephen King is a massive fan of the film and even paraphrases one of Selena's lines in the novel Dr. Sleep. The line being, "He needs us more than we need him." When the film was released, he bought out an entire showing of the film in New York City. You can look at it either two ways. Wow, that's cool, or maybe it's not so fun being that famous. I bet that was expensive. Number 5. Someone should tell the police. The crew did the standard jobs and filed all the necessary paperwork to make sure they were good to go with the destruction of the petrol station at Canary Wharf. But somehow, even after the masses of paperwork, the police, strangely, were not notified. When the explosives went off, the police sent out the fire brigades to add to the one that was already there. Danny Boyle took at least a few hours to get it sorted, and all told, with the problematic results in tow, the explosion cost £250,000. Number 4. Pick up shots in the backyard. Every filmmaker needs to get a few pick up shots here and there, yeah? But what about getting them in your own backyard? When Jim escapes the 2 soldiers who were going to execute him, the shots of the jet overhead were shot by director Danny Boyle in his own backyard. He took one of the cameras being used on set home for an entire 2 days and filmed random planes that went by. I suppose when you go for a certain look, stock footage is probably not an option. I wonder if he put those 2 days of work under the budget. Number 3. More than one outcome. There were a bunch of different endings that were shot. I've personally seen more than one of them, and I love the ending where they're free and living in a picturesque landscape which appears to be zombie free. Another ending's where Jim is taken to hospital where he succumbs to his gunshot wound despite Selena trying to save him. Selena and Hannah leave the hospital together, which was supposed to be portrayed as an open ending, but the test audience interpreted that as a certain sign of death. So the filmmakers created a special epilogue with a more uplifting ending. Everyone loves a happy ending, right? Before our top 2 picks, here's some honourable mentions. Danny Boyle ended up casting athletes to play the infected. He felt that since athletes can do things other people can't, which is indeed true, it would be interesting to see their physicality and movements translated into the screen as the portrayal of the infected. It certainly paid off. The flashback scenes of Jim's parents were shot on a Super 8mm film. The film includes heavy product placement for the UK National Lottery, who fund the British Film Council. The tunnel sequence took 2 days to shoot. Jim, Selena, Mark, Frank and Hannah's surnames are never revealed during the film or in the end credits. Likewise with Jim's parents. After Mark dies, when Jim and Selena left Jim's parents' house, they walk past 3 broken clocks outside of a building. The clock in the middle has its second arm stuck on the 28th second. Number 2. Can you imagine anyone else but Cillian Murphy playing Jim? Ewan McGregor was the original choice to play the protagonist Jim. I had a little think about it, and after a while I could actually picture it. I think he'd have done a good job. Ewan McGregor ended up not agreeing to do the part as he fell out with Danny Boyle. In an interview years later with both Danny and Ewan on the Graham Norton show, Ewan points out that he got really upset about not being cast for The Beach, especially since Danny and him had essentially done a string of films prior, with him being in every single one. Thankfully, they've since reconciled and are working together again. And coming in at the number 1 slot, number 1, 28 Days Later was one of the first mainstream films to be shot entirely digitally as opposed to with film, with the exceptions of course being the flashback scenes in 8mm as already mentioned, as well as the scene at the cottage in the lakes which was shot in 35mm. It was decided that the film would be shot on Canon XL1 cameras which were launched around 98. The decision to use these cameras was both an aesthetic and logistic choice. Producer Andrew McDonald said that shooting with standard cameras would have been impossible, and he also said in the production notes, "The police and the local authorities were quite happy to assist us because we could set up the scene so quickly. We could literally be ready to shoot with a 6-camera setup within minutes, something we would not realistically have been able to do if shooting under the restrictions of 35mm. Aesthetically, Danny Boyle felt the DV imagery, being as harsh as it was, definitely was, suited the post-apocalyptic theme of the film." In the production notes, Boyle says, "The general idea was to try and shoot as though we were survivors too." So that's it for this week. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you soon.
Irradiated.